Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Chinetsky. Today we are joined by the dynamic duo behind Fitness Informant, Mr. Ryan Bucki and Gerhard Hoermann. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
First off, did he pronounce your name right? That's impressive.
Yeah, I told him beforehand, too.
That is impressive, Robert. Just on the money with Gerhard Hoermann's name.
It's Herman. You still say Hoermann, too. So.
Correct.
Yeah, I tried to do at least a little bit of research right before I get on these podcasts just to make sure. Right before we hopped on the call, when you were getting your stuff set up, Ryan, I said, Gerhard, is it Hoermann, Herman? Hoermann?
Dude,
what is this? So
that's the thing. Like when he used to go by Clipper back on the forum page, I was like, we're not going to call you Clipper, and I'm not going to have people pronounce Gerhard or Gerhard or Jerry. So we're just like, call him G. And
Gay far is what I heard growing up. So
G Money. We'll call you that for the rest of the podcast.
I've been called that too. Ger Bear was a popular one too.
That works.
But
Awesome.
G works. It's memorable.
Yeah.
Go on.
Awesome. All right. Well, so anytime I had this first time guest on the podcast, I like to get the origin story, the background story. So how did Fitness Informant come about? What was your background experience with supplements, and then at which point did you bring on G Money into the program? And walk us through that.
Yeah. So for me personally, I've been using dietary supplements throughout my adult life. I was a professional wrestler for 10 years. So if you guys listening or watch WWE style or Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold, whatever, whoever you grew up with, that's what I aspired to be. So 16 years old, I started training professionally to be a pro wrestler. At the age of 26, I finally got my tryout with WWE. So if you watch the product on TV or have ever seen it, you know that you probably should maintain an appearance to make you at least look visually intimidating. And so working out and dietary supplements was part of the plan. And for me, like anybody else, like I would buy supplements based off of reviews on bodybuilding.com or something I'd seen on a magazine. In fact, I told this story before. My first supplement I ever purchased was based on a Mike the Situation article in Muscle and Fitness. So I mean, that tells you from like where I came. But I fell in love with what's this shit that we're putting into our bodies. And like at some point I was like, okay, this is, it's altering the way that I perform. It's altering the way that I feel. This is more than just something. So I became super curious on what it was. And I was never a science guy. It wasn't my thing in school. But I went and got an MBA or master's degree in business. And after I got that, I moved to Milwaukee where I took a job with supplementwarehouse.com. Now that at the time in 2014, if those listening were around, it was probably the second largest e-tailer in dietary supplements to bodybuilding.com. And their big thing was price match. Well, when I got embedded into the industry in 2014, I really started to learn some of the stuff behind the scenes and what proprietary blends were and what these companies were, saying openly in conversation with me about how much margin they were making. I was like, okay, this is scary. Like this is not cool for the consumer. Yeah. So I had an idea then to start a YouTube channel for Supplement Warehouse to help educate people on what they were taking. And this is YouTube still kind of, not taken off. I left SW after a short period of time just because it just was not a profitable company going in the right direction. And I still had this infatuation with starting this brand. I was good with digital marketing. That's where my background was in. So in October of 16, myself, along with Brian, who does some of the SEO stuff on the back end, said, why don't you just go and start doing reviews and we'll become billionaires on affiliate marketing, right? Yeah. Like everybody thinks. And that's not at all how we make any money. But then that's really when I dove into it. And so 2016 started doing this. And then the summer of, 2018, I kind of eventually took a stand and said, like, we're going to stand for something and be authentic all the time. And I'd called out Bang at that point. And it kind of blew up and brands were like, I like what you stand for, I like what you do. And I was kind of consistent with what I did from day one. And it became my full-time business venture back in 2019. And G actually, he was with SR, Supplement Reviews, for a long time. We had been privy to some information that the new ownership group of SR had been hiding in links that would bring them to their Raw Ambition shitty products. Yep. And I reached out to G and I was like, listen, dude, this is going on. And he started diving into it and looking into it. And he didn't want to believe it at first, I think, because of your loyalty. And you just didn't think they would do that. But when it became true and their separation happened, I'm just like, dude, I'd love to have you over here. And so the fall of 2018, I think it would be, right? Fall of 2018, he came over and started working with us, and it's the rest is history.
Yep. Been with him ever since, attached at the hip, as you can see.
Excellent. So, Gerhard, how did you, because we both worked and wrote content at a time for Supplement Review, so I think you came on right as I was leaving there. So how did you meet up?
A couple years after.
It might have been, yeah. How did you get hooked up with Tommy over there, and what's been your background with supplements, and when did you get into the game?
I was a longtime member of supplementreviews.com. That's how I kind of got known on the site. So Tommy trusted me. I kind of got a shoo-in for the job when he sent out the when he told people he wanted to hire somebody. How I got started in supplements, I used to be big into like the party scene when I lived in Germany. I was big into drugs and alcohol, to say the least. And when I got home, when I was homeless in Germany for a while, and my parents eventually flew me back, I got into lifting. I watched Mike the Situation, like Ryan did. Oh wow, you can be a douchebag and get girls. So I thought, okay, I'll start lifting. And eventually, like everybody, you start working out for girls, and eventually it becomes part of your life. So I eventually stopped drinking, and to keep myself occupied, I'd start to review supplements online because, it was kind of interesting, something new. Yep. Eventually got a job at GNC, moved to San Diego, worked at Sprouts for 3 years, learned a lot about supplements there. And then eventually I got a job at SR, and that was a side hustle as I was a logistics manager for my dad's company. And then eventually Ryan called SR out, gave me some info, and offered me a job. So...
Yeah, I think one of the things too to point out there for his story is like the fact that he worked at Sprouts is a differentiator just in the space, because not a lot of people are familiar with that side of the world, or it's not super interesting to me personally. Like I don't wake up every morning and think of, okay, what greens product or what Corella or whatever the hell like Sprouts and
form of vitamin K2,
right? Like what Whole Foods is selling, but there's a lot of people that are, and especially now in 2020 with greens products the way they are and all these new formulations coming out, such a huge asset to have somebody like G on the brand, because he understands and appreciates that stuff and likes it. So I lean on him to educate me, because it's just not super interesting for me to dive into the benefits of algae or whatever it might be. But I mean, the more and more I learn about it, the more and more I become curious and educate on it, which is great.
What are your thoughts, Gerhard, on greens products in general? Because I'm not a very big believer in them, just because there's not a whole lot of data behind them, and we don't, from the consumer side, we don't have any idea what kind of manufacturing practices are going into making these. So do they actually contain any micronutrients in them, or are they just hyper-processed, green powder that tastes like shit? What have you learned in your research of the products?
It depends on what brand you're going by and what kind of forms the greens are actually using. Mm-hmm. For instance, like a freeze-dried greens is probably going to be better than just some of the other forms out there. Overall, I use them. Mm-hmm. However, I'm very selective with what they are. Like, for instance, Inspired Nutra's one is actually good because you can see like how much spirulina is in there, right. Versus like in a 3-gram blend of wheatgrass and barley grass and oatgrass, where those are kind of useless in my opinion. Like, they're all hype. But other than that, I suggest them, but they're definitely not at the top of my list for overall health.
Yeah.
And I think too on that point, I mean, you look at the company like Amazing Grass owned by Columbia. I mean, they make all their money based on this concept of greens, and like I don't know anybody who stood up and said this is an amazing product per se. You look at what Chris Waldron's doing with Inspired Nutraceuticals. It started sort of this trend. Now you have Ghost following this trend. You have SteelFit coming out with the greens formula soon, and a lot of these brands focusing more on the pre and probiotic aspect and the gut health, because we've become more
health conscious
and educated on everything starts at the gut, which is great. It's just not sexy, and it's hard to get a consumer to spend $40 on a 20 serve of Inspired Greens
on something they're not really going to feel. Besides maybe better digestion in some people, like anecdotally I could say that,
right?
But you're still not going to feel it. It's not caffeine or beta-alanine.
And I think, Robert, you bring up a great point, too, in terms of some of this manufacturing process. I mean, we don't know a lot about it. And for G and I, like we meet with Mark Stagg, we're at Futureceuticals quite a bit at all these expos, and we talk about their whole new line of ingredients coming out with fruits and greens, where they're actually containing a full serving of greens and stuff like that. And even some of that stuff still is tough to believe everything behind it. So, but then again, you look at the vast majority of the ingredients in our space. They're the proven ones, like creatine monohydrate. We know it's the most clinically studied dietary supplement ever. But then a lot of the stuff like Laxogenin or whatever it might be, it's like we don't have a ton of research on it. But hey, we're supposed to believe it and we're supposed to buy into it because XYZ said so.
Right.
And we just have to, yeah.
Oh God, you had to bring up S7, the horse that I love to beat the shit out of every week on the podcast. Oh, have y'all messed around with that ingredient just based off anecdotal? Have you run it solo? Have you run it in combination with other stuff? What do y'all think of it?
So we got pouches back at the Arnold last year. I have enough for like 400 servings, basically, the 50 milligrams. It's been sitting on my shelf because it's not really even worth me, in my opinion, me measuring out, because I haven't really felt anything off of it, even on its own. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying it's bad yet, and I've tried doses up to 200 milligrams. However, I don't know if it needs to be added to something to work, but at that point, does it really make it worth it if it has to be added to something?
Correct.
So.
Yeah, the whole adage of, this old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and this whole, like, take 50 milligrams of S7, it boosts nitric oxide by 230%. It's quite the claim, quite the claim coming from broccoli and kale or whatever, S7. I can't remember all the.
With a finger prick.
Yeah. So I've taken it as a standalone as well, and then people are like, versus nitrosogene, which one do you prefer? I prefer nitrosogene. And then there's
hell yeah.
And then I say, well, S7, it might, work when you use it with a nitrosogene or a vaso 6 or something, but then you can't accredit S7 for anything at that point, because now which article in here is actually doing it. So, I mean, I love Mark. I love Futureceuticals. It's tough. I mean, even, a lot of these things too, like Glambia has a Fitnox, I think is what it's called too. And they have some bold claims on that one as well. And it's like, man, and then you start to dive into some of the research and the data behind it, and it was done on a specific type of person, or they don't weight train. It's like, that's the biggest, and this, the biggest issue with all these claims that we make on these ingredients are nobody takes a chance. Nobody reads past the abstract. It's like, okay, here's the abstract, but then who were the participants? What were the dosages? And it's like, but companies can just take the claims if they use just the minimal amount that supplier requires and toss it on a container, and people just lead to believe it.
Yeah, and for most of the time, these studies showing with these new ingredients aren't even done in resistance-trained males that are even in our age demographic or training experience or anything like that. It's usually in unhealthy individuals or sedentary individuals that are overweight, and just it's really hard to get your skirt blown up about a lot of these new ingredients that are hitting the market. There's a few that kind of pique my interest, but by and large, every time I see something, I thought, all right, well, we're reinventing the wheel for the 487th time. Do we really need to do this again?
And these companies are making a ton of money. Like you look at HMB, for instance, right? I mean, you look at the studies behind that. I believe it's on sedentary adults, 70 plus years old. Yep. I'm a fucking 33-year-old man, and I work out. So it's not going to, and am I supposed to spend $70 on this ingredient because it's supposed to help me build muscle? No, because nobody reads the research behind it, thinking it's untrained people. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you're untrained, sure, take it. But I mean, most of us aren't 70 plus years old sitting on the couch not training. So it's frustrating, but that's why you exist, we exist, and we're trying our best to help educate as many people as we possibly can.
Yeah. Earlier, you brought up Laxogenin. Have you, either of y'all, noticed much of it? Do you like the ingredient? Do you not? How do you feel about it?
For me, it's tough, man. It's just, so, I mean, I've been fully transparent with people. Like, I'm on TRT. So when it comes to muscle building ingredients, I don't really have a horse in the race. I can't really speak on it. But before I was on that, I would take, like a laxosterone product from Chris Waldron, and I think it was in Legend or LGND. He's got a product, I think Pico2 is in that as well. And then I was like, man, and I started looking at some of the research behind it. It was on bovine, and it's like, okay, there's no human clinicals on this stuff that I could find. I have not looked at it lately, but the more and more I see people in the industry that I trust start to use it, the more and more I think, well, maybe there's a chance. So when I see Doug Miller use it over at Core Nutritionals in Bollock, I'm thinking maybe, but I still think it's smoke and mirrors, to be completely honest. I mean, I think there's potential, but I need somebody to spend some money and give us some solid evidence that this is actually working, because otherwise it's just either a placebo effect or you just want to believe it because you just spent $50 on a product that contained it.
Right. What do you think, G?
I haven't really noticed anything from it. I've used it a couple times, especially back on SR when I, still use a lot of those natural anabolics when they were starting to gain popularity as a category. Like epicatechin was also part of that group.
Yeah.
However, I never really noticed anything from it, just being completely honest. Maybe I haven't used it long enough, but to be honest, I think it's shit. Being honest, in my honest opinion.
With it being on the dietary supplement ingredient advisory list now, we probably won't see much of it. I know we've talked to several brands that are already just going to pull it and just not deal with it. So it might not be something in 6 months, we might not even be discussing this ingredient anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think, if anything, its benefits may come from its adaptogenic qualities, where it might help lower cortisol, and by that avenue, it might be an indirect muscle builder, but I don't buy in much into the claims of boosting protein synthesis 200% and all of that stuff. I think it was done in rat studies in Russia back, decades ago. So who the fuck knows if those studies are translated properly, or, very few people have actually read the actual studies to see. Most of it's just ripping copy from one page and putting it on somebody else's product page and ripping it. It's a game of telephone.
It's a game of SEO online now too, right? I mean, everybody's copying stuff and then restructuring it for search engine and for Google, and now everything's being misconstrued. I mean, in terms of cortisol regulation, I think we all can agree, like ashwagandha and stuff like that. It's definitely a more affordable option.
Bingo.
We have something that's proven to work, or something that might work. So, and it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. When you were starting Fitness Informant, Ryan, there's a lot of supplement review channels in there. How do you approach the company and differentiate yourselves from the other outlets in there? And then do you view the company as in competition with those, or is just another option for people to get a different source of information?
Yeah, yes and no. So I thought there was a different way to present the information. So my background being from the pro wrestling world was like, how can you make these more in layman's terms? So we are good friends with Shane Smith at Stacked. We're good friends with Mike Roberto at Price Plow and Ben Kane. We obviously speak with you quite often as well. And for me, it was like, okay, Price Plow does very good science-based reporting or information. If you go to their website and you read their articles, it is for people like us who enjoy to read that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I also thought there was a simpler way to convey that information to the consumer, because sometimes consumers don't give a shit about the stuff that we care about.
Correct.
So they want to know, like, is this dosed correctly? Does it work? What should I feel? And Shane really doesn't do a ton for video. He doesn't do, but he really never got into more in-depth reviews. So, we started out as a quote unquote review channel. I thought there was an option to be different too. If you look at like body compositions, not to be an asshole, but like we all look different. Like I kind of look that part of a bodybuilder. Yep. Mike is a collegiate swimmer. Shane obviously lifts, but he doesn't put himself on camera. Right. And even now, Ben's a power lifter. So we all have different, and he's a bodybuilder. G's a bodybuilder too.
Gym bro, not bodybuilder.
So we all have physically different appearances that I think certain people gravitate towards. Like the powerlifting crew is probably not going to come to me. They're going to go to Ben. And, people who weightlift might come to me and whatever it might be. But I thought, there's that opportunity. And then secondary to that, I didn't want to be cornered as this supplement review platform. Like I cringe when people say Fitness Informant, you're a supplement review website. Well, okay, if you go to our website, we have 13 published ebooks of training guides. We now have overhead recipe videos that just went live this week, kind of like your Tasty or Delish, but fitness first meals. We have fitness. So basically, bodybuilding.com's free content that they once upon a time had is I wanted to sort of bring that back, but also encompass in supplement reviews. So we want to be more of an all-encompassing free educational portal for all things fitness and nutrition and not just dietary supplements, albeit we just had this conversation. The supplement review corner of the site, it's a massive part of the site. And I don't want to neglect that or ignore that fact that it's there. It's a huge part of what we do, but it's not all that we do.
It's also just one opinion on a product too, where back on SR, it was like, could have been like 20 people reviewing the same product. So you get like a bunch of different opinions. This is us.
Right. When y'all are going about doing either reviews or ranking products, how long do y'all vet a product before obviously protein's a one-off thing. You do a flavor test, it's over, but something like an EAA product, a pre-workout, muscle builder, cortisol control agents, those things that take, maybe 5, 10, 12 times to get a feel on, how long do y'all run them? And then, what goes into the process of analyzing and reviewing products?
We have to use the full tub. At least our reviewers do. Full tub, we have to check the mixability, flavoring, and effectiveness, and value, of course, too. So that's basically all that goes into review, right?
The big thing I want to do is you get a lot of these people who want to be supplement reviewers and they'll get a sample pack or they'll try something for 2 or 3 times on a pre-workout.
Go on IG, post it. It's free.
I've had a pre-workout before that I've used for the first 4 or 5 days was great. And then I didn't feel shit after that, So, and consumers don't buy 4 servings. They buy 30 or they buy 20. So when I started that 5, I was like, listen, it sucks. It takes us a little bit longer to reviews, but if it's a pre-workout, you must use that pre-workout for the entire duration before you write that review, because that's what the consumer is purchasing at the end of the day. And we've all heard, it's not a myth, but we've all heard from the days of the past where you go into a vitamin shop or a GNC and you get a sample packet of something. Sample packets they tend to be stronger than the actual container tubs that you'd buy. So if you have a sample packet of Craze pre-workout or something from back in the day, it's like, this stuff is awesome. And then you go buy a 30 serving unit and it's not the same. Well, it's because that sample pack was done intentionally. So you would feel what you're supposed to feel when the tub is not the same way. So we still abide by that today. Our reviewers do. G and I mean, we're obviously, all 3 of us on this podcast can take a product for probably a good 7 days and know whether or not it's good. And just by looking at the label and assuming that there is in that product what the label says there is, we should be able to tell, whether or not it's going to be a good product or not. But sometimes it's also a way of saying, okay, if I'm really getting all these ingredients, why am I not feeling something? Maybe I'm not getting what they say I'm getting.
Yeah. When you're choosing to, work with a brand, if they purchase ad space on the site or they want to get some content up on your site, what kind of vetting process do y'all go through with these brands? Because every week we're getting more and more companies that are jumping into the supplement industry. So how do you go about obviously we know the big dogs that are quality people, NutriBio, Ghost, all that, so on and so forth. But what about some of these new entries? What vetting process do y'all go through to see if you want to work with these people or not?
They have to have something we at least support.
Mm-hmm.
Like Performix, for instance, their profiles obviously aren't the best. We're straight up honest about that.
Mm-hmm.
However, they did have the FitOps Foundation, which we were big supporters of. And it's not like they're the worst company in the world. They probably have high manufacturing standards, all of that. So they have to have something that we can support for them. However, we're going to be honest with if we like them or not.
Yeah, we'll just use Performance for instance. If the three of us here would not go into a GNC and buy a single one of their products. Okay, I will be the first to say it.
Agreed.
They pay me money, and I'm saying it out loud. So for people who think that I'm biased, there you go. I would not buy a Performance product in GNC, but for every Performance product that you buy, they do donate the portions of the proceeds to support FitOps. So if you go to our site and you look at our reviews of Performix, a paid sponsor of our platform, the reviews are not good, okay? Because we are honest in what we do. But outside of that, like why we're accused of being biased all the time and why our reviews are so high, it's because we have a vetting out process, to your point, that's extremely high. I don't want to spend time taking shitty products and working with a brand where I'm trying to how can I help this brand when all their stuff is not good? So like your Ghost, your NutriBios of the world, like Muscle Feast is a brand that not a lot of people know about. They're fantastic. They're great. So we look at their products, we look at their labels. G and I will have a phone call. It's like, listen, does this fit the brand? Does this make sense for us to get behind and support? Because if not, I tell the story all the time and they get so pissed at me. There was a deal on the table for $15,000. That's a lot of money, right? With a company in Boca Raton. It's a big company. I won't even say the name. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I won't say their name. But I called them up and I said, listen, I can't do it. Like, as much as I would love an extra $15K, it's not. I couldn't be authentic about any of your products. And I'm not willing to lie and jeopardize what I built on this. So I walked away from that $15K, and we find it elsewhere, or we don't find it at all, and that's totally fine too. But it's not about greed or money for me. I know the money will come if we do things the right way always, and that's if you go to our site, we have a media kit which got published online, and people are like, "Oh my God, they make money." Yes, it's a business. We have to make money. But I have brand values that says like our biggest brand value is always do the right thing. So. There are certain things that we believe in, that we stand behind, that we'll be vocal about. And that's why I think brands are so open to working with us, because they like what we stand for and what we do. So, to come back to this, it's a big vetting out process. Obviously, product labels is a big thing. We want to make sure that they're, GMP facilities. We want to make sure if they're a banned substance control group, that's great too. But they have to have standards, and it has to have, something. And like, it doesn't necessarily have to have a plethora of products. You look at Matt Coleman and Built Fast Formula. He had one product last year, one product called VasoBlitz. He came to us in January of last year, did an annual deal with us, which is our top tier deal. And we helped him grow that brand throughout the year because it was a very good, nitrate-based pump product that a lot of people liked, that we enjoyed. And we were able to help him out significantly in a year.
I mean, when people say we're biased too, one thing I have to say, Ryan doesn't pay me enough to be that loyal to him. Like, no offense, dude. Yeah. But like, if I didn't like what Ryan was doing, I could easily go back to my logistics managing job where I was working for my dad, have all that privilege. I kind of choose to work for him. So if he was doing something I didn't support, I'd leave him. Right. So you guys have that from me.
Obviously, do y'all get any kickback from the brands so they say they're paying for advertising space or, a write-up or something on the article, but you give the product a negative review? How do y'all handle that if you ever get any negative feedback from the brand? Say you kicked one of their products and you said it was shit, even though they're paying you a decent amount per month for ad revenue.
Yeah, I'll pop in here. I mean, I CCG on every email to make sure that I'm never speaking out of line, or to make sure that the responses are. So I want to make sure that there's enough eyeballs on some of this stuff, because this industry it's a childless industry at some point. It's an ego-driven industry. So you say something negative about some of these products and they are extremely hurt by that. So for instance, when Performix came out with their new SST, their test booster.
Some test booster.
Right? It's $100 at GNC. And now this was just a news post. It wasn't even a full review. I just said, I can't support this. I emailed our contact over Performix. I said, hey, this isn't going to publish tomorrow, but here's what I said and here's why. They were very respectful with it. But I love to tell a story of Greg Helton over at Kodiak and Muscle Sport. Their Attack pre-workout is extremely popular. It tastes, their flavoring on it is great. the profile could use some work. And so I think I got like a 7.4 or something on the site, which it doesn't even put in the top 30 or 40 pre-workouts that we reviewed. Mm-hmm. They're one of our largest supporters. And, Greg had emailed me and said, like, what do we got to do to get this ranking up there? And I said, nothing. This product already exists in the market today. There's nothing you can do. Yeah. But what you can do in the future is make better products. And what happened after that is like King's Ransom came out like 6 months later or 7 months later, which I was a big fan of. I thought it was great. Now, I was with Horton and Hegemine or whatever, it might go away, but they won our pre-workout of the year last year. And it wasn't because he complained. It's because they went back to the table. Jason formulated a pre-workout that I thought worked excellent. Justin, your buddy Justin at Supplement Stoop liked it too. G liked it. But that's really what it takes. Like, I'm sorry, when they sign up with us and they come on board with us, I let them know right away. The minute you write that check does not change the way we look at your products. So if you want some positive feedback from us, you need to formulate something that's going to generate a positive response from us.
I'm used to brands getting pissed off at me after working on SR for so long because I had no control of that. I don't know if Tommy's ever talked to you about it, but even our sponsors wouldn't get any kickbacks from that. It didn't affect them. So we get a lot of people. I'm just so used to it at this point. If I were to write a negative review for any brand out there and they were to, get pissed off at me, I'd go through one ear and out the other.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing with us vetting out this process, though. We don't necessarily have a ton of negative things to say because
I like to use good products, basically.
Right,
most of the brands that we work with are decent quality. Like, you're not going to – NutraBio – and I heard this story. And I don't know if it's true or not, but, like, there was a product at NutraBio last year that came off the line and Mark Glazer walked up to it and said, what is this shit? We can't release this because Ryan Buckeye will rip it apart. And he threw it away. So, like, and I don't know, I got to ask Mark about this because I don't know what the product was. But, like, that's the thing. Like, when the companies that we're working with, Ghost, NutraBio, even, like, a lot of people will give Redcon flack, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes going on there that a lot of us can say he said, she said, whatever. On paper, like, you look at Total War, it's not the best pre-workout in the world, but it's not garbage. I'm not going to tell people it's garbage. It's a $40 pre-workout for 30 servings that does the job. And like it makes our life a little bit easier when we partner with brands like that. But the problem, and Robert, you know this too, the brands that make quality products don't necessarily have money to spend on marketing. And so it's hard for us to find those brands, but the brands that really put their trust in us as an extension of the marketing team, we go to bat for every single day.
Yeah. Does that ever raise any flags of caution? Because Redcon, and there's several other companies that do this, so this isn't to isolate them, but they're one of the biggest names that jumps to mind, that they're always running crazy deals and giving away lots of free things whenever you buy one of their products. Does that ever send off like a red flag in your mind? Is that, are these products actually, worth this money, or how much are they actually spending if they can give me this much free shit every time I order?
Right. The good thing with me and having an MBA in the business background is I get that kind of stuff. Like, I get how he does it. So, and I've had conversations with Aaron about this. People have to understand the volumes that they are buying as well. Because the nice thing about, say, Redcon and say Total War, for instance, that formula I believe is compliant like everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I always say, you look at Southwest Airlines, they make one airplane because it's cheap to maintain, it's cheap to fix. And so Total War, they make one formula, it's compliant everywhere. They don't have to make different formulas. So the volume of that particular SKU or flavor, whatever it might be, is so high that his cost is so low. And Aaron also understands the value of data. So he's willing to lose money or break even to own your data because he's going to get you to buy something in the future that's not at 40% off. You're going to buy it 20% off now. He's making money. And Josh Shaw did a great video on this over Black Friday. I mean, Aaron did close to $8 million, I think, Black Friday, something like that.
Holy shit.
But he was giving away, I think it was if you bought $250, you got $250, right? Yeah. You also have to understand MSRP, right? Because a sweatshirt is worth $70 MSRP. That cost him $4 to make, you know? So I think that's a lot of people too, like, holy shit, how are you giving away all this stuff? Well, the MSRP value is not what that product is worth. So there's a lot that goes into it. That's his business model. He decided to go that route, and that's how he was going to build the brand. And he's built a brand. Obviously, he's making money, and people love the brand. And until something significant comes out where it's finalized, I'll say that word, that says this is not actually in that product, I can't tell somebody differently at this point.
I have nothing to add to that. You hit it.
Yeah, great. Do you see more companies trying to follow this? Because, we've seen Ghost's branding kind of get ripped off by several other companies, and it's successful, maybe not as much. Do you think other people that might try and imitate Redcon's business plan might have the same amount of success, or would they, since they're not one of the first people to jump into that plan of action, they'll ultimately fail doing that?
Well, I think Redcon has two things going for them. One is obviously they have their business model, which anybody can replicate your business model. Okay, right. It doesn't mean you're gonna be successful. You can replicate anybody's business model, but Redcon has a personality, and that's one thing that you can't replicate. So Ghost, Redcon, both significantly different personalities. For Ghost, for instance, like super authentic in terms of who Dan and Ryan and that entire group is there in Chicago. Mm-hmm. But people walk into a local supplement shop and they ask for Total War. Like the consumers are demanding this because they see the ads online. They like the messaging. They like the brand. They like the athletes. I mean, you can't tell me that Brian Shaw is not one of the biggest, sweetest guys in the world who reps the brand. People want to be a part of that. So, you think about what over the years, bodybuilding.com had many of these discounted brands. Where are they now? They had the same business model that Redcon had. Yeah. But Redcon took it and said, well, let's do this business model, but also add brand personality to it or create something that people want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. First Form has done that for years. Like people want to be a Legionnaire or Legion of Boom or whatever it's called, right? Like if you can create a culture that encompasses people and they want to be part of that, you can do the discount model. You could charge a premium, whatever you want. But once somebody buys into that brand and wants to truly be part of that, the business model comes second, and it just happens. That's what he wants to do. And it works significantly well. He's able to keep, costs low enough and give enough points that Dick's Sporting Goods, HEB, all these big, food, drug, mass places want to bring them in. That's a win every single day for Aaron. And as many people as dislike Aaron, there are so many people within this space that respect what he's doing because they can't replicate it. They can't figure out how to do it. And they ask me every single day, like, Ryan, what is Aaron doing over there? Aaron's just doing what Aaron wants to do, and it's working out well for him. But he created, before Redcon even launched, I think he put T-shirts in the market for like 6 months, and people were like, "What's Redcon? What's Redcon?" Mm-hmm. And they launched to massive success, and now they're one of the largest supplement companies in the world in just literally 4 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember writing one of the first articles, just kind of doing like announcing who the brand was, what was behind it, what the mission of it was, and it's crazy to see how quickly it's grown in just in that short 4-year time frame, like you said. And now they're expanding into all the other avenues where I think they're going to start branching out beyond just the supplement thing to where it could be bigger than sports nutrition. It's going to be lifestyle, but it's going to encompass. So I'm expecting in a few years we're going to see like sporting goods that are like Redcon One branded or something like that. They're going to transcend just being a dietary supplement company.
Well, if you think he's got the Redcon One Gaming, which could be supplements, but he's got Redcon One Outdoors that they announced 6 months ago that they haven't done much with at this point. Mm-hmm. But they have a Navy SEAL that's in charge of that, so they're putting the right people in place. And it's the one thing, Robert, you and me and G, we love these small brands doing these really cool, innovative formulas for us personally. Yeah. But, this is going to rub some people the wrong way. Some people say our formulas are marketing. It's going to be tough for you to break $10 million if that's your campaign. Like you need marketing, you need branding, you need packaging, you need something. Otherwise, that magic number of 10 million that we talk about in this industry, you're never going to get over that if you don't do something added above, because the best formulas in the world are fantastic for geeks like us, but they don't give you a lot of margin to spend on marketing and to get you to a point where if you even want to get there, a lot of these brands don't care. But if you want to be a massively large supplement company, it's going to be extremely hard to get to a Redcon. You're never going to get to a Redcon by being the best formula in the world. This is not going to happen.
Anything to add to that, G?
Oh, no. He kind of said what I was going to say.
Perfect.
Thanks, Ryan.
So with the Arnold is coming up in just a few weeks, and I think this episode will actually air the week of the Arnold. So my question to you is, what is your goal when you're attending these fitness expos? Because obviously you've already got relationships established with all the main players that you're going to see booths for. So what are you going to with these expos, and do you expect to be blown away at these expos? Are you kind of burnt out of the expos? Because the Olympia last year, according to most people within the industry, they said it was a pretty big letdown. So what has been your experience with them, and how do you attack these expos?
Oh, well, personally, I think the most fun part of it, at least for me, is building relationships. Like you said, I'm over the whole expo thing, walking expos, because it's the same booths always. Especially with supplements, it's you can't really give an experience with a supplement. Maybe with functional foods, I know you love that word. But building relationships is the biggest thing to me. I know Ryan likes to make content and do the interviews and things like that. But for me, it's more like, I like to meet, brand owners and see, what they're thinking, what made them come out with their products, for instance.
Yeah, G hit it on the first and most important thing for us is the relationship aspect of things. So whenever I speak to a brand, I always call them, the first phone call we have is never about business and what type of marketing packages we can offer them. It's getting to know one another and see first off if it's a good fit. Because I'm old school. I like to build relationships. At the end of the day, if you don't want to cut me a check, completely cool. If you and I get along and we can have a good constructive conversation about maybe bettering the industry, that's what I'm about. And so, going to Columbus is great because we get face-to-face time with the brands that we currently work with. I'm old school. I love Skype. I love phone calls, but seeing them in person and spending time, sitting down with dinner with Mark Glazer, you can have such an in-depth conversation. You've been there before. Have an in-depth conversation for 50 minutes. It's great. And, we work with Mark and it's fantastic. Prospecting is another thing for us too. It's like, okay, what brands, because there's so many brands in the space. There are a lot of brands that people are asking us in our Q&As, like, what do you think of this brand? I've never heard of them, That's not to say I'm ignorant of the industry. It's just there's so many brands. And, so if I see new brands, it's an opportunity for us to be like, hey, here's what we do. Let's talk. But I also, to go back to we're more than just a supplement review channel. At the Arnold, we are covering content. We're having interviews with Jay Cutler and Brian Shaw. We're covering the actual bodybuilding stuff. We're actually giving an award or presenting an award at the Amateur Olympia this year from Fitness Informant. So through Gasperi. So trying to branch out and do more than just, again, dietary supplements, because these expos, especially the Arnold, I love it. We're going to FIBO this year, which should be cool. But like Arnold trumps the Olympia by 20x, in terms of fun for me, because there's just so much more going on. I'm a huge fan of strongman. I think it's cool. So, for me and my own personal podcast, who can I get on that show? And like, this year I'm having lunch with Regan Grimes and just like people in the bodybuilding world, just to get, talk to them more and just be more than dietary supplements. So it really is for me a brand building thing, because I want FI to be a place that anybody can come to, not just if they want to buy the next cool variation of patent creatine HCl that apparently can take less than a gram at this point. I don't give a shit about that all the time, but it's make sure, kind of the Redcon one way. It's like, make sure people know who we are. But also, provide the best content we definitely can without watering it down.
How do you get your name out there without becoming overly shilly or, seeming like you're in the tank for a handful of brands, maintaining your integrity while trying to scale and be a recognizable name in the industry? Because you could easily sell out and just partner with a brand and let them boost your content and say, hey, we are the official supplement review channel of this, or this is the official supplement site of XYZ. How do you go about scaling up your profile in the industry while still trying to maintain your integrity? Because at some point, we all have our own personal biases. There's certain companies' products, we like the owners, we like their products because they usually hit well in our wheelhouse. How do you navigate those pitfalls when you're just talking to the average person saying, hey, even though we might have some of these dollars accepted here, we have a good personal relationship with these people, but you can still trust our word when we're telling you yes or no regarding all other brands out there?
I think it just stems from the day one in terms of maintaining that authenticity that we've been about. I mean, it's calling out brands that we work with for not doing things the right way, and obviously giving praise to brands who've never cut us a check. Like Chris Waldrum at Inspired Nutraceuticals has never paid me a dime, and he might never pay me a dime, but I praise his products all day long because he does a really good job in terms of formulation. So, but I am, you go to our website, and if you go to the brands page, anybody that has a featured brand is somebody who's paying us. So, and I've been very open on that before. It's like, listen, if you want to know who's spending money on FI, go to our website. I'm not going to hide behind it. Here's who we do. And, if you look at our rankings that G has spent a lot of time on, you don't see a lot of our brands that we partner with that pay us money in the top spot. Sometimes it's some of these smaller brands out there that have the number one rated product because it's the best product on the market. Yeah. And it's just something that we had to say, like, listen, if we're going to lose business for being honest, then those are companies that we don't want to partner with in the first place. And, and for the most part, I would say the vast majority of brands that work with us, they appreciate that and they say, okay, well, if this isn't good enough for FI, what is? And they go back to the drawing table and then we're at the point now, and Robert, we were on a phone call with NutriBio over the summer about, their ethics line, and they were formulating a pump product. Like, they trusted you and I to be on a phone call with Colombia's R&D team to talk about Fitmax, I believe, of all things, right? Like,
it was.
So it's like you get to the point where brands really do trust what we say and they respect us because we tell it how it is. Like, at the end of the day, I don't want a consumer going and buying a product and saying this product was shit. Fitness Informant told me this was crap. Like, now that's bad on me. So,
right.
It's no different than the brand. If you don't want people talking trash about your brand, then provide something of quality. And that's what we try to do every single day. Provide something of quality. Yes, during Q's and A's, if somebody says what's the best, multivitamin, I'm not like infatuated with multivitamins. So I will revert to NutriBio, Core Nutritionals, like brands that we work with that produce them because I trust the brand,
Yeah.
And a lot of times, our feature brands are the brands that, the nice thing too, the brands that we work with are some of the best brands in the space. So they are producing a lot of the good stuff. So it's not like we're trying to, pull somebody's leg on something. It's, like Ben Morphogen Nutrition. Okay. Like it's the kitchen sink of supplements. He does a phenomenal job with it. We don't have a working relationship with them, but anytime somebody asks me about Ben's company, it's like,
it's good.
It's amazing.
Just use it.
It's amazing. Use it. Or Jeff Long. Like they don't pay us anything, but at the end of the day, we recognize quality and consistency, and they deserve credit as well.
Yeah. For the average consumer, do you think those premium formulas, whether it be Morphogens, NutriBios, Jeff Longs, anybody that does these like massive scoop products that kind of attack either performance or fat burning or, nootropic and cognitive enhancement from multiple directions, do you think the average consumer is really willing to pay for that product, or do they still always looking for the BOGO deals and they just really want, 200 milligrams of caffeine and a pixie dusting of everything else with the illusion that it might be just as effective as these heavy hitter formulas?
They're probably not willing because Insane Labs is still doing insanely well.
Yeah.
So
nice work. Yeah, at the end of the day, the average consumer is walking into Costco buying the twin pack of C4 for $40. Okay, and that's what it is. And so, and that's
nothing
fine.
wrong with that either.
There's
nothing wrong with it.
That's fine. If that's what they want, if all they need is the benefit of energy, then sure. C4, it's those of us who are looking for that extra 5 to 10%, because that's all dietary supplements are going to do. If that, like you have a good conversation with Chris Gaffin, he'll tell you too. Some of the best trained athletes, I consider myself a pretty well-trained athlete. I'm in the gym 6 days, 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. I need that extra 5 to 10%. So I'm looking for those things. Yeah. But if somebody comes to me for the first time and says, Ryan, I've never been in the gym before, I want a pre-workout, I'm going to say, no, you don't. First off, make sure you can get to the gym. Like you shouldn't need a pre-workout to get to the gym. But once you get to that point and you're still a beginner, take Total War. It's $40 for 30 servings, or you can use a 30% discount code and get it for 32 or whatever it is, or $28. Once you get to that level where you actually want to seek more of a performance enhancing something from something, and you're going to be consistent about it and you're serious about it, now start to look at some of these premium formulas that cost a little bit more money, because then they're going to work for you. Because if you're somebody that's going to the gym 3 days a week and half-assing it, what is Morphogen Nutrition going to provide you that's going to give you any extra benefit than cellular C4? Probably nothing. So we want to be truthful and transparent to people. At the end of the day, like I'm never going to come on a podcast or on a YouTube and say, take C4, it's great. I'll never say that. and Nutrabolt knows that. But I'm also not going to say, go spend $70 on, C4's Dynasty, because you need all this stuff. Like I just won't do that either.
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't know if I want to go down that avenue or not. I see the last two.
A lot of overlap in the Dynasty is what you want to say?
Yeah, the C4 Dynasty and then the C4 Ultimate. Neither of those blew me away. I think the original formula of C4 Ultimate, the one that even had the energy blend, prop blended. Now, I hate energy blends and I hate prop blends, but that one still had better ingredients overall, I think, than the upgrade that C4 Dynasty and the new C4 Ultimate were. And I can't get behind charging $70 for a freaking pre-workout. I think that's absurd, especially when it's over half of the active ingredients are things that don't have any acute benefits whatsoever.
Yeah, I think most of us would be fine using C4 at the end of the day. Most of us could go to the gym, get our results simply using C4. So at the end of the day, a lot of it's just, I like to say mental masturbation with us supplement nerds. We like to see loaded formulas. We get excited for it.
Right.
So,
right.
What do you think? Do you think it's not a flaw of personality, but it's just people that tend to use dietary supplements by and large have that kind of OCD personality, or there are those neuroses where we're always constantly seeking ways to optimize every other aspect of our life?
Yes, for us, for me, I'm definitely we had it before, this closet behind me is obviously filled with supplements just from brands we work with, but I tend to try to seek out like what extra benefit can I get. But I've also, now as I've aged and I've trained a little bit longer, like I used to be a stim junkie for sure. Jack 3D was my shit. I'd take 2 scoops of that back in the day. I've been fully transparent of that.
That's it?
Yeah, it was stupid. At 33 years of age, I'm good with like 250 milligrams of caffeine, a good nootropic, and some pump. And to me, that's where I go. But yeah, I look at things like greens powders that we talked about earlier. It's like, will this help me? And I look to dietary supplements to provide any extra benefit I potentially can get, especially now being on prep and having a show coming up. But at the end of the day, it's like the dumbest thing ever. But like I still revert back to like what grows from the earth and what I can get in real food. And then I overlay dietary supplements. Thankfully, I don't have to pay for dietary supplements given what we do for a living.
Right.
Because half the stuff I take today, I would never walk into a store or go online and buy it. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm much in the same avenue with that. I would just, it's a luxury to be able to use supplements, but by and large, if I was strapped for cash, I wouldn't be buying, I would say 90% of the stuff I use outside of, maybe protein powder, which is a convenience. And I understand there's nothing magical about protein powder, but it just makes hitting your amount of protein each day that much easier and not having to cook as much chicken or steak or whatever else during the week.
Right.
Oh, let's get into a little bit about each of yours daily supplement regimen. So, Ryan, I guess you can kick things off. What are you currently running now?
It changes so much though, Robert, just because it depends on what somebody sends us. But for the most part, I do work out. I used to be a 4 a.m. riser, so I would get up early in the morning and I would just take a pre-workout, work out fasted, go to the gym. I've changed that now, so now I take protein powder, but only once a day, and I take a pre-workout with Rice Krispies or a carb source just to get the fuel for the gym. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, to your point too, I like to get my protein from whole food sources, chicken or steak. Yeah. I don't like to use powder as much now as I used to. Pre-workout I take every day, strictly not because I rely on it or need it, because we have to review them, and like I mentioned earlier, we have durations and stuff. So I take a pre-workout and a pump every single day. I take pink Himalayan salt every single day. It's not a supplement, but it's something that I love to take for hydration and pumps. I do drink an EAA or a BCAA depending on what I had to eat, if I am truly fasted or not. Mm-hmm. Post-workout, I don't take protein like many people do. I've been dabbling. MFit Subs makes that Recoup CBD infused recovery formula, and we've been dabbling with that. I've been a big fan of Ambrosia Collective and their overtraining solution, and some of the products that they have. Outside of that, I'll have maybe one energy drink a day if I'm dying. And even that, to me, it's a bit much because most of these energy drinks are 300 milligrams of caffeine. That's why, I'll give credit to C4 and Nutrabolt, their new Smart Energy that came out with 200 milligrams of caffeine. Mm-hmm. It's nice. It's nice that it's not so overdone. Otherwise, maybe I sip on aminos throughout the day because I like the taste. I don't do it for the benefit. I just like flavored something because I have to drink 200 ounces of water a day. It's kind of hard when it's just plain water. That's really, for me, that's really it.
That was quite long too. Yeah. Me, I guess I'm almost the same. I guess we're all similar here. I start off my day with about 1 gram to 1.5 grams of L-tyrosine. That's basically start my day off with a nootropic, and I've found tyrosine to be the most beneficial for me. That's what I'm using now. Throughout the day, I don't use much. Depending on what I have sent to me, it'll help. I usually like to add some sort of cortisol blocker because I am taking so much caffeine throughout the day. Mm-hmm. A pre-workout, obviously, my pre-workout collection is like a Pokemon card collection. I just go through it. Oh, I like this one today. So that's what I use. Obviously protein powder, convenience food. And as far as I do use an intra workout as well, whatever BCAA I have. Mainly, I actually don't even use it for the BCAAs or EAAs in there. Mm-hmm. I use it more so for the electrolytes that they usually add in there, and they taste good. They help you drink more water. Right. In a sense, because I'm definitely getting more than enough protein throughout the day. I'd be fine with probably 100 grams of protein, as asinine as that sounds. And if I have it, I'll use a sleep aid. Yeah. I keep it simple, and whatever's sent to me for review or just sent to me in general, why not? It could be fun.
I think to your point, sleep aids are interesting. For
I think
me,
they're underrated.
For us, Robert, too, being our own business owners, and our minds are always kind of working. Obviously, this is how we pay the bills, and me having an employee on the books too, that's money out of the business pockets. That's money out of my pocket. So it's my wheels are always spinning in my head, thinking okay, how do I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable and taken care of. So it's tough for me sometimes to fall asleep. So a sleep aid when done nice, I use, and then I think we both. We use some dietary supplements that aren't sexy, like citrus bergamot or tudka or kidney formula,
turmeric.
Things like that aren't going to get people listening to this podcast if they're a general supplement goer. You're not going to get a hard on listening.
Stuff they should take, but they would rather take caffeine and beta-alanine.
Right.
Correct.
So I've been super big on your internal organ health, especially being on TRT for sure. Mm-hmm. It's okay, I need to regulate my blood pressure. I need to make sure that my cardiovascular system is working correctly, kidney, liver, all that stuff, because we abuse the shit out of our bodies so much with what we take. Those are staples in what I do. I just don't speak about them all the time because it's not what people always want to hear about.
Gotcha. Since you brought up the MFit Recoup, that was another one that came out with a really high price tag, and just based off looking at the formula, I wasn't overly blown away by it, and I didn't think the profile warranted a $70 price tag. So what's been your experience with it? I haven't used it personally. I'm just going by what I looked on there, and I'm going to be, completely honest, and everybody listening to this is not going to be surprised. I'm not a big believer in CBD. I've tried different oils and CBD isolates and everything else, and I've never gotten, much of anything from it. So what has been the two of yours experience with it?
The more I look into CBD, the more I'm like, okay, I need way too much for it to be effective.
Right.
So, or cost effective at least. Anecdotally, I can say I've actually recovered good from it, but that's all I can go by. If I go by the profile, it's a BCAA formula with some colostrum in there. I think there's betaine in there as well, electrolytes. I like it. But I do agree it does come off as expensive. But I also have to keep in mind, MFit does have some very superb manufacturing practices, as far as I've been told.
Yeah.
So that's why I can assume, okay, at least it's coming from a good place.
Right. Like A&Z Pharmaceutical owns MFit. So your manufacturing there is going to be top notch. But the fact that they elected to go with every single ingredient being a brand ingredient, they paid a premium for that. And then that premium gets passed on to the consumer. And I had a conversation with Nick at MFit, said, okay, like, this is a recovery formula with CBD, and the price tag is what? And he told me what the price tag was. I said, ooh, that's going to be a tough sell. It's going to be a tough sell. Now, there's a consumer for that, for sure. Would I buy it? No, I definitely wouldn't. But can I say it's bad? I can't say it's bad per se, but to your point, Robert, I'm not a believer in CBD either, really. I haven't found it to work for me. And I've tried, full spectrum, broad spectrum. I've tried different oils, gummies, and I don't get what other people are raving about. They're like, oh my God, it saved my life and it cured this. Did it? Or, I know people who smoke weed and they get benefits through the THC and, it relieves pain. And I had, a cousin with cancer and stuff that would smoke to ease the pain. I get all that stuff. But I don't see that from the point of view of CBD oil. I've never met somebody personally that has that story. I've only seen things online and I've never experienced it personally. So for me, it's hard for me to get behind it saying this is going to be an $80 billion industry because it works so well, but it is the hot topic and it's the hot commodity. And until the government figures out how they want to regulate that and what they want to do, it's still kind of up in the clouds at this point. But it's probably going to end up being the next big thing, whether we believe in it or not. It's getting pushed on us.
True. With the branded ingredients, and since extending based off the MFit Recoup, which I just said, are y'all personally wowed when brands use a lot of patented or trademarked ingredients? And do you think the consumers are more willing to buy stuff like that, or is it more ingredient specific to where it's not just broad spectrum to where every time I see a patent ingredient, I love it no matter what the ingredient is. But if it's a certain ingredient like KSM 66, then it's a good one and it's worth paying that premium for.
I think it's a couple things that I scratch my head at in this space, because first off, the responsibility falls on the ingredient manufacturer to make that ingredient worthwhile to the consumer, because a lot of these ingredient manufacturers will come out with an ingredient and they'll just sell it to brands and they expect the brands to build up the ingredient for them. That's not fair. If you're Compound Solutions and you come out with Dynamine, it's your job to educate the consumers on what that Dynamine is supposed to do. But what happened in this case, like, brands went and said it's the next DMHA. No, it's not. It's not even close to it. And so then consumers would buy a product that contained Dynamine and be let down because they expected a DMAA or DMHA type feeling because a brand told them that. So that was one ingredient that had hype behind it that consumers purchased because of it, but it was hyped up from the brand side of things, which was basically misconstrued information, which then Compound got shit on for it, which wasn't fair either, because they never once came out and said, like, this is what it's supposed to be. But we also live in a world now where I could go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to take 500 milligrams of tyrosine and mix it with 100 milligrams of alpha GPC. I'm going to have this cool little concoction. I'm going to go do a marketing trademark for this thing. And I'm going to call this XYZ ingredient. Technically, that's a brand ingredient now. Now I don't have clinicals behind it that I can reference, but you can put it on the front of the container, and the consumer's going to walk by that pre-workout and say, wow, there's a brand ingredient. Like, that's cool. It must be worth it. No, anybody in their lab can do that, or anybody who's got $250 to register a marketing trademark with the USPTO can do that. So, you have to go a step further, and most consumers aren't doing that, where they look at the research behind these patent ingredients. So, carnosine beta-alanine, for instance, right? They spent a ton of money on that, and there's a lot of research behind it. But now, like generic beta-alanine, is used more often than not too. It's so as a consumer, there's been so much, on beta-alanine that they're not necessarily willing to spend more on carnosine beta-alanine at this point. But I think, in large, consumers don't care. And they shouldn't, because until somebody gives us a reason to care, until they spend enough money and research on people like me and you who actually are going to be using these products, then I'm not going to care either. Now, there are certain things like, like SR caffeine or sustained release type of caffeine things, which actually have benefits to them and they're cool. Yeah. But again, it takes it puts the responsibility on the consumer to learn more about it versus the ingredient manufacturer who's making it. They're the ones who should be promoting it, spending money on marketing, partnering with Price Plow, us to help tell that story versus just putting it out there expecting people to buy it.
Yeah. Anything else?
He kind of got the points I was going to say. I think they're more effective in our little supplement nerd bubble on here for as far as like patented ingredients go. So I don't know anybody, like I couldn't go to a casual supplement user and be like, yeah, nitrogen is great, right? And they probably wouldn't know what the hell I'm talking about. Right. So,
yeah. There are some like Basal 6 that I think Compound did a good job on marketing that. Obviously, it is what it is now with everything going on. But like nitrogen, like we can talk about that. But like nitrogen was a big with S7. I think they did a really good job marketing it. Futureceuticals did on it, but then it didn't perform.
It looks very sexy on the front of a bottle too.
But if I'm going to complain about ingredient manufacturers not doing their job, Futureceuticals did their job in that case. It's just it didn't perform to what the expectation was. So you have to, whatever expectation you're going to sell as an ingredient manufacturer, that better be the consumer. That better meet that expectation to the consumer, or it's going to fail. And I think if we want to circle back to Dynamine, I think Dynamine is exactly what Compound Solutions always said it was going to be. I think it's a good ingredient. I think that there's benefit to Dynamine, but I also was never one that went into Dynamine thinking like this is the next DMAA. I never thought that because I didn't believe it to be true.
Right.
It is what it is. Is it worth the price? We can have that conversation.
For me, it is. I like that ingredient.
Is it worth that?
For me,
for most consumers, maybe not. Maybe just using dicaffeine malate and straight. Caffeine might be sufficient, but when you see a profile with caffeine, teacrine, Dynamine, like that's sexy, that's good. It's going to work. It's just a little bit more spendy, and I'm not sure most consumers give a shit about teacrine or Dynamine. Although I think the three of us, we look at that stuff. It's like that's cool.
If someone goes out and buys C4 at Costco, I guarantee they don't really know what the hell the creatine nitrate is. They probably just like, oh, there's creatine in there.
Right.
So.
Gerhard, you mentioned that you like Dynamine. Have you used it solo in combination with caffeine, and then have you done the trifecta of caffeine, teacrine, Dynamine? Do you like that trifecta? Do you only prefer two of them together? What's
the
your
trifecta
experience?
Makes me tired. I could say that. I like it as a pre-workout.
The same way. Yeah.
I like it as a pre-workout with caffeine alone. If I just want to get stuff done at home, though, I prefer teacrine. Teacrine is more like long-lasting, good energy. Dynamine hits me hard, and I'm like, puts me very in tune with my body when I work out. So that's what I've noticed. I actually got to try it before it was actually released. Yeah. Really. And yeah, I really enjoy it, but I like it alone with caffeine.
I think on paper it looks good. I think they sell it correct. Like that trifecta, I think Compound sells it correctly. What happens, now this is like Robert and G, you guys using it as standalones and dosing it correctly. Most of the pre-workouts using it are probably not dosing it where they should be. A lot of people understand like 40% tasteless Dynamine, you need like roughly 250 milligrams to yield 100, right? So I think Compound says you should have like 100, 150 milligrams of caffeine, 50 milligrams of teacrine, and 100 milligrams yield of Dynamine. I think is like the perfect scenario. I've never tried it as a standalone. I should if you guys have tried it, but like it's interesting you think it makes you tired. Because
teacrine, I'm pretty sure it's like small doses actually give you energy while like the bigger doses actually
it's an inverted U curve to where like super small doses can make you tired and very large doses can make you tired. So but there's that sweet spot in the middle that it's really good energy.
So maybe the combination of both kind of put me over the edge.
Yeah, because you see some of these products are doing like 300 milligrams of teacrine, and then
really,
I've seen them on that. Or even like a brand that we work with, Alpha Line used 300 milligrams of theanine, and it was like one of those things. It's like, well, okay,
they have the DMHA in there too, or had the DMHA.
It did, but like those are sometimes you just wonder like the thought process behind that, and what kind of testing went into that, and then it's interesting, but. That's what's so fun about this stuff. There's so many different unique combinations that we could sit and spend years trying to figure out. that's why, like, when it comes back to proprietary blends, when it comes to stimulants, it's like, I'm not like, I hate proprietary blends. I said that, but like, do I understand why they use it on the stim blend? Sure, I do, because there's not necessarily like, there's not clinical data behind the stuff.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, stims, then I'm also torn because stims are the ones you should be disclosing because those are the ones that consumers are putting in their bodies. So it's like, I get it, but I don't get it. So it's just, it is what it is.
I agree there.
Yeah. Now, I know, Ryan, that you know, at one point in your life, you did use a lot of high stims. These days you don't, you know, and you're not a super big fan of high stim products. So how do you go about reviewing them when you do have to review pre-workouts for the site?
Yeah, I don't touch them. And G and I, so we do have a review team that we've put together that G heads up. So he makes sure, like, they go through an application process, just like anybody else. We say you need to review a product, submit on all these different profiles, and they submit it through, and then we grade them. And if they do a good enough job, then we have them come on, and then G's in constant contact with them to educate them to make sure, like, that they're doing things appropriately, you know, according to, like, what we believe in at FI. Now, with that being said, like, we just got a new deal with a brand called Muscle Force. They have a Defiant Unleashed, I believe, is their pre-workout. Very high stim. It's not something that I personally want to take and review. So
we don't recommend it for people, to be really honest.
Yeah, like, I mean, for the average person, I'm not going to recommend like a super high caffeinated product. Now, Mike, the guy reviewing it, is a power lifter, much like Ben Kane at Price Plow has been very vocal about. He likes high doses of caffeine. Mm-hmm. Ben's a very unique individual. If you've ever seen Ben in person, he's a massive human being.
He's a big boy,
7'8".
He's not the normal person. So like, yeah, I've been very vocal in terms of like metabolic nutrition and their ESP Extreme. And my gripe with those brands, that one specifically, is they claim that it was a warning when they put it on the front of the panel. So it's like, for me, it's like, okay, if you're not using it, if it's not a marketing thing, then why are you putting it on the front of the panel? Why are your social media ads shouting 750 milligrams of caffeine? Like, and it's not that, and I've never once said that 750 milligrams of caffeine or 600 milligrams of caffeine is going to kill somebody, or it might not work. The problem is you're going to have somebody come into the fold who thinks it's cool to take 2 scoops, or might forget that they took a scoop and take a second scoop. Mm-hmm. Now we're getting in that danger zone. So, and you know, even like Apollo Nutrition makes a very high stim pre-workout too. Can it work for people? Yes, it absolutely can work for people. Does it work well for people? Yes, it does. My biggest fear is that somebody takes too much of it on accident or on purpose to be funny and then gets hurt by it.
Yeah, and then the government comes down.
And the government starts to come down on things. Now, will that happen? Yeah. Who knows? But I think most people, and by most people I mean 99% of people, should never need that much caffeine to get going. Like if you need 600 milligrams of caffeine to go work out to the gym, you need to quit taking stims, quit drinking coffee, figure it out. If you elect to take that much caffeine because you have a powerlifting meet, because you're trying to set a PR that day, different. Okay. Yeah. So, but if you're taking it because like you're a stim junkie and you just like it, think about taking a fucking break and chill out for a little bit and let your body get back to being normal, because you're not doing it any benefit by just like overstimulating yourself, especially when some of these stimulants are so high that it becomes vasoconstrictive. And the pump is like the number one things that you should be seeking in the gym, because that's what's bringing nutrient-rich blood into your muscles, helping repair them, grow them. That's the point of a pump, not just because you look fucking cool in a mirror. So there is give and take. And like I said, I've taken high stim stuff in the past, and I didn't like the way I mistakenly took 2 scoops of King's Ransom the first time I got it, which was 600 milligrams of caffeine
plus all the other stuff.
And I felt like fucking garbage, you know? And so like people will say, well, research touts this and it's safe to take. Yeah, I didn't die. I did not like the way I felt. My workout sucked. So for me personally, I can't do it. But somebody like Ben Kane at 270 pounds or whatever he is, like he can do it. And that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just survival of the fittest, or Darwin's, you know, theory at that point, where if you are willingly going to take, if the company willingly discloses how much caffeine's on there, and your ego is saying, oh, I'm going to take 2 or 3 scoops of this, you know, 600-700 milligram caffeine pre-workout, and something bad happens to you, that's not the supplement company's fault. That's your dumbass fault for, you know, letting your ego write checks that your body can't cash, to quote Top.
Yeah, and the problem on top of that is, it's okay. So you're going to take 750 here, but then you're going to have a bang 3 hours later, and then you're gonna have a half a pot of coffee or a couple espresso shots at Starbucks, you know, even later. And it's like, how much caffeine per day do you really want to start consuming? And I think a lot of us, I think if people really look, like I consume no more than 600 milligrams per day, which is high. I think that's high the way it is. But I bet you a lot of these people, especially the stim junkies, they're taking over a gram of caffeine a day easily.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been at 2.5 grams per day for like a month straight. It did a lot of bad to my skin. Like my skin kind of, I don't know. There is a study saying too much caffeine can like ruin your skin. And I definitely noticed that. I also like broke out with it. I'm guessing from the cortisol.
Yeah, it's probably
I was adding ephedrine to it, all the other stimulants that come in pre-workouts. Right. So it didn't kill me, but at the same time, I would never recommend it or ever go back to that. So yeah. Little story from me.
And those are one of the things too, like, the authenticity of the brand. Like that's something that I stand for and I stand firm against. It's like, I don't think anybody needs that much. Now, again, is there a niche? Is there a market for that product? Yes. Do I blame the brand for making it? No. You can make money because there's a consumer that wants to buy that product. Right. But when it comes to recommending something, in my right mind, cannot recommend that to people out there. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just not something I would recommend.
I think people also think Ryan absolutely hates them. It's because he's so high energy when he like reacts to things. He's very high energy. I can barely keep up with him. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have anything against anybody that makes these, unless it's like really dangerous. However, sometimes it just comes off like he does.
Well, unless you're Insane Labs, saying you put 200 milligrams and there might be 4 times that amount in there. If you're sneaking it inside of a prop blend, that shit pisses me off. If you're going to put caffeine in a prop blend, please disclose how much at least that is. If you want to hide all the other shit that's in your energy blend, but don't fuck with people with caffeine like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree 100%. Caffeine should always be disclosed. Always.
Agreed. Have there been any products in the past year that looked good on paper and then they just kind of fell flat for you? Like maybe other review channels were really raving about them, but just your personal own feedback to them wasn't all the greatest?
Can I go in your cabinet and see?
Yeah.
Maybe one will remind me.
You definitely can.
Let's not do that. I can't think of one off the top of my head because usually I just look at it and if it has caffeine in there, it's really hard to tell if it's not giving me energy, for instance, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess I wouldn't say that the C4 Dynasty on paper blew me away, but I mean, I wasn't impressed like by using it by any means. But again, it's one of those products that we like to say in this space that it was a fuck you product. It's like, okay,
we can do something.
Yeah,
big.
like, hey, industry, like just because we make the number one selling pre-workout for $40 in the twin pack at Costco, fuck you. Here's a massively dosed pre-workout, which is
bunch of over 6.4 grams of beta alanine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with 6.4 grams of beta alanine.
I don't either.
But like, I just think that
it's unnecessary.
When you use multiple different ingredients that are targeting, say, the same pathway when it comes to a pump, like at some point there's a point of differentiation. There's a point of like you're not getting the benefit from it. You're just paying for it as a consumer. Correct. So it's kind of like, okay, what good is 200 milligrams of SSEP going to do over 50 milligrams? Now there are studies saying like the more citrulline you add and shit like that, but most of the things, I mean, over the last year, nothing is really that comes to mind where I was super, super disappointed in it. Like I will say, I mean, the biggest disappointment that I've had in the last year.
S7 for me.
In terms of products, and I love the taste of the products, but it's the new Dimetized Fruity Pebbles protein. The biggest disappointment for me, only because it didn't actually include the cereal in it. Like, I mean, gotcha. For me, like and that has nothing to do with the flavor, the effectiveness of the product. It's like, you're using 2 iconic IPs, like intellectual properties of a brand that is in your family of brands. I get it's an isolate. Use just a handful of Fruity Pebbles. Use a handful of Cocoa Pebbles. Like really give us that authentic experience. Like Ghost used real pieces of Chips Ahoy in it. And looking at organic glitter pieces that are supposed to resemble Fruity Pebbles, I thought was a miss. And I told that to Dymatize. I said, listen, I know it's an ISO 100. You want to keep carbs low. But in reality, by adding in the inclusions, you would have raised carbs by maybe a gram.
I'm willing to sacrifice 3 carbs for a little bit of Fruity Pebbles.
But that has nothing to do with the effectiveness of a pre-workout. Exactly. It was just like the experience of that product I thought would have been better if it would have included real Fruity Pebbles or real Cocoa Pebbles in it.
Yeah, I would agree. Primeval is another example. They've got an isolate, and their strawberry shortcake bar or strawberry shortbread, whatever it's called, has the inclusions in it, but it's still an isolate. It's still fairly lean. I want to say the carbs are maybe only around 3 grams or so, 4 grams. So I mean, you can definitely do it. It's curious that why they didn't do that. It seems like I'd agree with you, Ryan. It's a miss on their part.
Yeah, their explanation was carb conscious, and like I said, I get it, but
that's what they said.
Yeah, but I mean, your sales I think would have been exponentially more if you could say with real pieces of cereal. I mean, that's part of that experience.
I think it'll be more long-term sales that they'll miss because of that. Because I saw that I would have bought it regardless, even if I knew there was no, cereal pieces in there because I love Fruity Pebbles and that's a huge experience for me.
Yeah.
So.
When y'all are, I don't know how much y'all track analytics for reviews, but let's say you're doing a regular flavor protein powder versus one of like the designer gourmet flavors like Fruity Pebbles and all that stuff. Do y'all find consumers, by and large, based on your own metrics, whether it be sales, views, whatever questions, that they are more willing to buy designer flavors, or do they kind of stick with the tried and true chocolate, peanut butter, vanilla, strawberry, those kind of flavors?
If it's a authentic flavor, like Ghost, for instance, with Welch's and Sonic and Chips Ahoy,
yeah,
yes. If it's just NutriBio, I love NutriBio. They came out with Pistachio Delight, which tastes amazing, right? But it's that's going to bump sales for them. But like if you just came out with, I don't know, like something that's supposed to resemble like Sour Patch Kids or something along those lines, like people might like it a little bit, but I think actually having an authentic licensing or that authentic flavor collab is going to bump them. Otherwise, they're, especially when it comes to protein, like a lot of these, like Pistachio Delight's not for everybody. I love it, but most people are still going to buy your chocolate, vanilla, and your peanut butters and your strawberries because that is your staples. And I think that's just it's the nature of the business. Like, it's cool to come out with these limited edition flavors or these short term flavors, but the longevity of some of these flavors, I think it's very hard because there's a very taste is so subjective. I think our taste buds are like, we know what chocolate tastes like. We all kind of like chocolate. Yeah. We know what vanilla tastes like. We can get by. But like strawberry shortcake, are we going to like it? Are these fruity cereals, I love them, but I know plenty of people that don't like them too. So
you're going to check the reviews on those first.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they're unique enough to the point where they are different, but also can sort of touch on a large population of that audience, it's good. But it's so hard to do that because our preferences change all the time, and they're so different from person to person.
I agree. You have all the analytics on the site, so
yeah. I mean, it's just like like Fruity Pebbles, for instance, like blew up. I mean, that people, but that also has a nostalgic feel to people. People grew up eating Fruity Pebbles, watching the Flintstones on TV. Of course, it's going to get exposure, and people are like, finally, they did this, versus all these brands. But then, flip side of that, BSN did the authentic collab with Cold Stone, and I'm not sure how many people were excited about that, to be honest with you. And it's hard because in that particular case, like Birthday Cake Remix is a concoction at Cold Stone. Like, it doesn't have a flavor. Everybody knows what Fruity Pebbles flavor tastes like. We've all had the milk bowl, right? So. And I think it has to be, or even, Sparta had the Dippin' Dots banana split, like in the fall before they went quiet. And it's like, okay, but what does banana split taste like typically? Typically, banana split's like, okay, you have a banana, then you have, I don't even know what the hell's on banana split.
There's like chocolate
and like strawberry or something. It's
chocolate, vanilla, strawberry.
Yeah. And I think if it's a flavor that people can really connect with, it's a lot easier to bump sales versus one that maybe confuses them.
Yeah. Since you brought up Sparta, that brings another topic to mind, and I'm curious to get both of yours input on. Very often, and we'll see it come across the Stack 3D Newswire, a brand will hype 4 or 5 new product releases, and then they go dark for several months at a time.
Right.
How do you think that resonates with consumers? And as somebody that takes a critical eye towards the industry at large, how does that resonate with you? Does that make you less inclined to trust the brand? Does it make you lose interest in them? Does it seem like they don't know what the fuck they're doing over there? How do you think just in general?
Honestly, I think with people's attention spans being so like short these days, I think people forget about it 10 minutes after they read it anyway. They might remember something cool for like a day or two, and then they'll forget. And then when it finally does come out, even if it's like a year late, like, oh yeah, I remember that. Okay, now I can try it. So
I think in this particular case, I'll speak. I don't even care. Like, whatever. Like, Icy is one of the most nostalgic brands in the history of our country, in the United States anyway. So I'm not sure if your listeners and viewers are predominantly here in the U.S., but like everybody can look at that polar bear, whatever their mascot is, and be like, Icy. I've had one of those at a skating rink when I was a kid. I've had those at a state fair. 7-Eleven. Like, we know what that is. So to promote that you have a authentic collaboration with Icy and an authentic collaboration with Smarties, which also was a very popular candy when I was a kid, and they were good tasting pre-workouts. We tried them both. And then all of a sudden have it just disappear. For us within the industry, it raises an eyebrow. Like, what happened? You don't just delete one of the most iconic brands in the world off your social channels and not talk about it, And so like that's why we wrote an article and we released an article, I don't know, a month ago, something like that, and it was entitled like "Where in the World is Spartan Nutrition?" I'm sure they were not happy about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's my job to, obviously report on the industry. It's like, okay, finally a brand outside of Ghost is doing authentic flavor collaborations, which is beneficial for this entire space. If we can get large CPG companies to trust the dietary supplements to allow us to license their intellectual property, then that is going to bring in like venture capitalists, investment firms, people who want to invest in the space. It's going to bring up the value of the entire space. But it has to be done right, because if we have one mishap or something with a licensing deal that puts a bad mark on the space, that ruins it for everybody. So you have to be, and this is, if you speak to the guys over at Ghost, like their biggest thing is like they just want people to do it right. They love that people are doing it, but do it right, because that way it elevates the industry. Yeah. So to have that disappear and to have it off their socials and then have their website down, it was like, well, what happened here? Like, what's going on? Like, you had a brand that was super fast growing in bodybuilding.com, then GNC, and like you had good flavors in your proteins and stuff. And we were excited about the ices because
I was excited.
There wasn't a lot going on with Sparta for a while. So when Icy hit and Smarties hit, like we were excited because we had a working relationship with them here at FI too, and we were excited. They're like, yes, finally something for us to do. And then it was gone. And like we didn't hear from them, and we worked with them. We didn't hear from them for months. And so like eventually it's like we kind of dove into a little bit more and said, okay, well, we're not going to say anything that's not the truth here in this article. Like, and I even had my attorney read it and everything, saying like, am I saying anything in this could get me in trouble? Because like, I'm stating the facts. Like, their Instagram has been cleared, their website is down. Right. They had this, licensing, or they had this agreement with Jen Seltzer in the summer to come out with a female line of supplements. Whatever her name is. The girl that beat up the flight attendant on the plane. And then nothing. So for me, it was a head scratcher, because like I felt like they had a ton of momentum, and to be just gone, it brings up the question, like, what's going on? And I can't say with any confidence at all I know what's going on, because I don't, and I wish them well. I hope that everything's okay, but I just don't know, because they haven't come out and said anything.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder, did we not have a long-term plan set up? Did we put the cart before the horse in this? And this isn't exclusive to Sparta. This has happened with other brands, and it happens multiple times a year. It's just that was one of the more notable ones, since they did the exclusive flavor collaborations, or the trademarked ones. And I remember
I think with that I say the biggest thing, like with licensing deals, coming from General Mills and working there and actually having conversations and being in rooms about licensing deals within this space, like you have to pay up front to secure that IP. Then you have to hit certain volumes. Okay, you agree to hit certain volumes. Then you also have to pay a royalty on everything that you sell. So to lose a licensing deal, like you have to either just not pay your bill. You have to something in the morality clause, like your brand does something that doesn't align with the values of the licensing company. So there are different ways that you could lose a licensing deal. Not to say that at all would happen, because I don't know what happened, but then it comes down to like logistics. Like, brands in this space suck at forecasting, and it's hard, but they're terrible at forecasting. So you'll have brands all the time that have stockout issues for weeks. That kills a brand. Like, if you can't fulfill a consumer's order, and then next thing you know, it's 20 days until that customer gets that order, and you're not doing customer service the way you should be, like, you refund that order right away, and you don't tell them they need to wait. You refund them and you move on. Like, if you don't have the stock and you don't know when it's coming in, you cannot ever tell a consumer that they must wait.
You ruin the experience that way.
You must refund them. And I think that's an issue like brands struggle with every single day. They don't have a good forecasting software. They're not sure how to do it. And then when they need more product, they go back to their CMO, and their CMOs is like, well, we can't get you in for 6 weeks because we have XYZ brand that has to get their stuff produced. So if you can't, that's why I think these brands out there need to pay good, large money to logistics managers and people that can actually, like supply chain managers that can be on top of this and actually run this for them. Because when you're supplying some of these big retail outlets, whether it's GNC, Vitamin Shop, bodybuilding.com, you cannot afford to never fulfill a PO. Like, you must fulfill a PO. But then when you fulfill that PO, it should never come to the expense of your direct to consumer. Like, you should never sell out your product to the point where you can't sell it to the person who wants to come to your website. So it's a struggle for brands, and I get it. And I'm not saying I have the solutions or telling how I'm not going to tell them how to do it, because that's not my expertise. But they need to figure that out, because like stockouts hurt brands all across this industry. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell where who's at fault or what is it. Is it the ship sank on the way over from China with all the raw materials, did the contract manufacturer have an issue with manufacturing? Did one of their machines go down? Did the batch of product get contaminated? Or did the brand just not do enough planning and back out their product for when they're stocking and forecast for when it should be? So there's multiple points in the process of where things can go wrong, and it's just kind of left the consumer with their hands up in the air saying, all right, well, if I can't get what I want from XYZ company, I'm just going to go somewhere else. And I'm inclined to believe that once that happens, a consumer is going to be very unlikely to go back to that brand after having a poor customer service experience.
Right. And there's no reason to ever have a poor customer service experience. And I will, until the day I'm out of this industry and until the day I die, I will always say that Dan and Ryan and the Ghost team had one of the best customer service experiences of the last year. When Chips Ahoy came out with all of this huge hype and half the batch was basically ruined. What they did is they ground up the actual cookie pieces within the protein powder. It gave it a weird off taste. It did not taste good at all. 50% of that was done. Consumers got them and GNC refunded the consumers their money, no questions asked. Refunded their money. They literally Dan was outreaching in our group on Facebook, letting people know they can go to their local GNC. 100% of their money was refunded. They got the process. They figured out exactly what went wrong, fixed it, and it's one of the best tasting proteins on the market. Really cool licensing deal, but no hesitation. There was no questions asked. They would refund every dime to every consumer. That consumer then that turned a negative experience into a positive experience. Now that they're probably be a Ghost lifer. Like they'll probably go back to Ghost all day, every day because of the way that they were treated.
Do you think that played a big factor in why y'all put them as brand of the year for 2019?
Well, they actually lost protein of the year for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why they didn't win protein of the year was because of the mishap.
They would have won otherwise. 100% honest.
But for me personally, so for brand of the year, what we did is we allowed the fans to have a vote. So what we did was the popular vote, and that accounted for one overall vote, like one electoral college type thing, I guess you'd say. G had a vote, I had a vote, and then Price Plow. We actually extended Price Plow an opportunity to vote as well. So for me, and I think G would agree with this too, like I thought the overall impact that they brought on the industry in 2020 and how they elevated the industry as a whole through their authentic licensing deals, and they made it cool. Like they made it cool. So we actually have there's a bunch of requirements for us to consider you for brand of the year. One is like obviously you have to be a profitable, growing business. You can't just be a business that's not growing. You have to have growing distribution. You have to be a brand that people would people want to wear your T-shirt on the streets. Do you have quality, effective formulas, and like your overall impact? So if you look at Ghost, they don't disclose their financials. At some point, if they decide to do the Inc. 500, they may, but they've never been one to tout how much money they make. We on this podcast know they make a lot of money. We just know that. Yeah. You know how much they're worth. But we knew they grew because their EU distribution and through their Ghost Lifestyle EU website went up. They grew distribution in Australia. Obviously, here in the States, they're GNC exclusive, but that doesn't mean they didn't grow. Like they can grow within GNC, which they definitely did.
The China pack. Are they in China now?
They're in China. Yep. And then they came out with a ton of different product launches this year, reformulations, the authentic flavor collabs, and the fact that you had brands literally basically ripping them off, because and I don't know, you might have been on phone calls before, Robert, but I've been in rooms with people before saying, how do we find the next Ghost? We want a brand like Ghost. Yeah. When you have retailers in big .coms and big retail outlets asking that question, then they must be doing something right.
Correct.
And, and for me, like it was Ghost 1, Redcon 2, and Redcon again, just extreme growth. And they've done a lot this year that I think a lot of people didn't give them credit for because it happened early on. But it's just, Dan and Ryan and that Ghost team and everybody involved over there, we had an opportunity to go there a couple weeks ago, and you walk into their headquarters, and it's the culture that they created with their employees.
Really fun environment.
Like they're not coworkers, they're friends. They hang out after work, and I think that helps them all kind of come together and create this environment that then translates onto what the brand is. And they're not saying like, take this pre-workout and our approach and to get massively huge. Like take it because like it's going to make you healthier, and you look at their athletes and stuff. It's just a cool vibe that they have there. And, they damn near won in 2018 from us. Redcon just had an amazing 2018 in a year. But yeah, I think the fact that you have, brands like, I think, what's that brand over? Is it Sneak? There's a brand that actually like copied their top with the scooper, And, brands using the word lifestyle in their name and just like different things like that, where it's like, okay, you definitely made an impact that people want to be you. Yeah. So you're doing something right.
After working on SR for years, we heard this a lot. Tommy would complain about this too. A lot of brands would tell you, we want to change the industry.
Yeah.
And all of them just say, oh yeah, we have a cool formula, and that's it. They really don't do anything. Every brand will try to tell you that, and they might think they're doing it, but they're really not. Ghost is the first brand. They never said they're trying to change the industry, but they actually did. So that's kind of why they won for me. Like, I'll give Muscle Sport all the credit in the world. They had great protein of the year, pre-workout of the year. You know, they have some really good flavors.
Yeah,
I really like what they're doing, but are they changing the industry? Not as much as Ghost. So that's why Ghost won in my eyes.
Gotcha. And I think when you talk about, going back to Redcon's going to be in that conversation every year because world domination, they're going for that growth. And again, their formulas they're not trashy formulas. They're doing some cool stuff. Like the Total War RTDs is arguably the best RTD pre-workout on the market. That, C4, I think, makes a decent RTD pre-workout, like a legit pre-workout.
Yeah.
I think we forget about some of those things. They came out with a vegan protein last year. Their MRE line, their bar line, their powder line is just a ton. And the fact that, I think like the rough number, what they did last year was $89-90 million. They're going to be over $100 million less than 5 years. It's insane.
Wow.
So you can't
have to give them credit there.
Yeah, you
really.
cannot not. That's why, like, not to discredit any other brand at all, but like if you don't have distribution or dollar volume growth, I can't in my right mind ever award you with brand of the year because like just because you have the best formulas doesn't mean you're the brand of the year either, So like
that's more something for the supplement nerds. If you think about like us, our little bubble here, like the people who like really look into formulas, we're gonna like Chris Waldrum, for instance, because he comes out with really great products.
Or Morphogen.
Morphogen, yeah, we're all gonna like. If we went strictly by releases and like products, we'd probably Morphogen wins hands down. Like we could announce that today for 2020, but we kind of look at more into it. We like the experience of brands. We like to see how they connect with their consumer. Because you can have the best products in the world. If you don't connect with your consumer, you don't grow. Nobody knows you.
Right. And I think too, like, not to make this long-winded, but even the brands, there was 5 brands up for nomination for that in the category this year. Not one complained about the choice. Aaron, great friend of mine too. He's like, I thought it should have been us, but I don't disagree with your choice that Ghost. So it's like, and Mark Glazer said, yeah, those guys should have won it. And like these are guys that we work with, and NutriBio did something every week for 26 straight weeks. So, but it's just, I think nobody within their right mind could look at me and say your decision was wrong. And I think that for like the last 2 years, nobody could do that except for PJ in 2018. But that's the only one that could ever tell me I did something wrong. But other than that, I think we made the right decision. I know Price Paul and Josh Shaw, I think, had those guys at 1-2. So I think they were validated for sure.
Perfect. All right, guys, and wrapping this up, what is to come for Fitness Informant in 2020?
A lot. So we have, we're going to have a larger female presence on the brand. I think that's one thing that's missing in our space. This is a bro industry, right? Like, you look at majority of people on forums or groups that are talking, they're dudes, and no offense to anybody out there. And I don't feel like I should be the person getting on camera and telling a woman what she should and should not take all the time. I think that comes off better from a female. And we have several females on the brand who work out. They're competitors. They take dietary supplements. They're learning more about them every single day under our guidance as well. We want to help educate them, but we want them to have a presence and a voice because that's what's missing from this space. And if you look at like the domination, you could say, of Alani Nu and what they've done at GNC, there are plenty of females out there with deep pocketbooks that want to buy this stuff.
Yeah.
But they typically, what they end up doing is they end up going with an MLM brand or something along those lines because they don't know and they don't trust. I'm a meathead. They don't trust a big guy like me, and so it's like we need that female presence. So that's part. We want to encompass a lot more engaging content. So food is going to be a big part of FI this year. We understand the importance of nutrition. So how do we make some of these recipe videos that people are obsessed with online, that get 3 million views in like 2 days. But again, these are like fatty recipes that people are obsessed with. But then can we help them make easier recipes, fitness first recipes? We're going to cover more of the bodybuilding industry more so. So really to bring more consumers to the brand. So if you're looking for some NPC news and we have the results of, say, the Arnold Classic or of New York Pro, they come to read that. Next thing you know, now their eyes are on Ghost or Redcon. Now they're digging deeper into dietary supplement reviews. So really for us, it's trying to like get our fingers in a lot of different things, but be good at them. So that way we can bring people who aren't necessarily looking for a supplement review to our channel, to our website, that end up then reading about this stuff. And then helping the brands that we work with. So it's just really like putting our foot on the gas. Having G on full time helps a lot because we can produce so much more content. We have an entire ingredients encyclopedia that we're working on too. I know he bugs you quite a bit on some ingredients, as he's writing them up. And
it's only a few times, maybe
once
or twice a month.
But it's, it scares me to be known as a supplement review channel because I feel
there's a lot of them out there, and a lot of them I'm just not a big fan of.
Right, and
I agreed.
I feel that we're much more than that. I feel like we have a personality. I feel like Fitness Informant is a brand, and I think that's the biggest thing. Is like we're trying to be a brand, not a platform, not just a review channel. So that's why when you watch our IG, like today, for instance, I took this dude to Culver's for the first time, and we're showing that on our IG channel because, like, we've had this thing between Culver's and In-N-Out Burger, which one's better? And so we live we live in a reality TV world. People love this stuff. People are obsessed with the Kardashians and all this stuff. Like, here's who we are. Here's who G and Ryan is in real life.
We're real people.
We
have burgers. We drink beer
with real problems.
White Claws.
So more so just be relatable to people because you'd be surprised how many people feel like they're friends with us and they've never met us. They just they trust us so much because of who we are. We come off as these authentic, realistic human beings, and we are because there's no need to hide anything in our lives. There's nothing to lie about.
Yeah.
I don't show everything in my life, but
pretty much
we show a lot.
There will be nudity in the channel this year.
That's something you forgot to mention. You're going to see more streamlined reviews as well as I put together more of a review team. It always can. Sometimes it takes us a long time to get a review up because we do require our reviewers to use the whole tub.
Correct. Yeah.
So if I only have like 2 reviewers on, there's only so much I can get up. There's only so many pre-workouts they can take every day.
Right.
There's 30 servings in a tub, and they use it and they work out 3 times a week. That tub's going to take 3 months to come out with. So I'm trying to expand that. We want more streamlined, easy, so someone could just go on the site, look at the review, and then find more content, like help them with maybe an ebook, recipe, ingredient education. So that's my goal.
The big thing too is like these invitations that we're getting for people to go and cover FIBO, for instance, right? Like that was an invitation that was presented to us this year. So they wanted us to come out and cover the event. Things like the Columbia or the Arnold in Columbia, or the Dubai Muscle Show. It's like starting to become more of a media partner to some of these bigger events as well. We're doing stuff here locally, but the New York Pro and LA Fit Expo and just some of these stuff. Like we want to be one of the first calls, or Athleticon, for instance, coming up. Like we want them to reach out to us and be like, we want you there, we need you there, versus us having to reach out. And that's really how we started. Like we reached out to supplement companies when we first started. I don't reach out to supplement companies very much ever anymore. Like a lot of times we get emails or Instagram DMs from brands saying like, we want to work with you. What can we do? And that would be nice for us to kind of become that sort of go-to in the fitness space and grow our brand that way. Because I think when we bring more people into the funnel through those types of
get them into our
events,
little bubble here.
Yeah. Then because people who attend bodybuilding shows, like they're not educated, but the more we can bring them in, and then they start learning more about dietary supplements, the more these people are spending their hard-earned money on supplements that are actually going to work for them versus wasting their money on, something that may not give them benefit that they're looking for.
Herbalife.
Yeah.
Exactly. Excellent, gentlemen. Well, thank you very much for a delightful interview. This is the part where you can shamelessly plug anything and everything Fitness Informant and why that should be their go-to news source for all things fitness related.
I don't even really think I need to be honest with you. I mean, fitnessinformant.com is the website. We have a YouTube channel. We have a weekly podcast called Be Informed, Live Fit. That includes people from the dietary supplement industry, but also includes bodybuilders like Ronnie Coleman, who was our first guest, for Christ's sakes. So we've been on that. Facebook's at Fitness Informant, at Fitness Informant on Instagram. A little bit on Twitter. We have a TikTok channel. Don't use it much. But Instagram, Facebook are the 2 big things. And really, I mean, the best way to support our brand is to come to our site and educate yourself so that way that you're bettering your life through more informed decisions when it comes to dietary supplements, fitness routines, nutrition. Like that's how you support us. You don't have to buy anything through our links, use our codes. I don't even care. Just like educate yourself so that way the longevity of your life is better for yourself and for those around you. That's the only reason we do this. It's not to become rich. It's not to make a bunch of money. If whatever advice we can give somebody helps them live a better, healthier life for themselves and their loved ones around them, and they actually want to make a change, that's literally, and it sounds cliche and it sounds cheesy, but that's the coolest thing about what we do.
Awesome. Well said, guys. Thank you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure, and we will do this again. Maybe we can get into some training and nutrition stuff next time.
Love it.
Awesome.
All right, let's go, buddy.
Thanks for having us.
Let's do it, guys. Thank you.